I was going to say now that I've grown up, but I'm not sure that I have. Perhaps I should say now that I am an adult, I stubbornly refuse to play my family's favourite game, which is Monopoly. That's because Monopoly in my family always seemed to be a blood sport, and it required all sorts of tricks and deceits from the person who was the eventual winner. I have to say that other members of my family are equally resistant to other card and board games. We all had our little ways and our little favourites. But when people fail to play our game, it is natural to be resentful and to sound off about the stubbornness and willfulness that stops the enjoyment of others. But I'm sure you've discovered, as I have, that there will always be people who refuse to give us satisfaction by joining in our game. And that goes for the game of weddings and funerals described in today's Gospel. There, Jesus points out the people who, for whatever reason, refuse to join in. He points out those who prefer to carp from the sidelines. What is surprising, though, is that instead of attacking the uncooperative, detached spirits, Jesus rebukes those who expect and urge cooperation and conformity. It's surprising because I think we've probably come to believe that Jesus' teaching favours unity and conformity as opposed to difference and otherness. Of course, Christian faith is a game, not like other games because it is trivial or merely recreational, but because it has rules and expectations from those who adhere to it. So we who play the game and adhere to the rules and rights of the Christian community naturally want others to join in with us. And when people refuse to join in with us, we can find ourselves hurt and disappointed. But in today's Gospel, Jesus calls our attitude into question and leads us to ask, for whose benefit are we entreating people to join our game? Is it for the sake of those who join, or is it really for ourselves, so that we perhaps might feel less marginalised or more secure with the support of others around us? Of course, I'm not suggesting that the Christian faith is a spectator sport, for clearly it requires participation and engagement, not only from ourselves, but with others. But must people subscribe to our rules and join our game to be regarded as members of the Christian community? Perhaps there are other games, or other sheep, or other folds, or other weeds. We do not need to be resentful and sulk like children in the marketplace when people respond differently, or indeed when they join other Christian communities with different rules and different rights. Jesus values difference. And I have to say that difference safeguards against the abuse of uncritical conformity. So if there are different ways of belonging, as we know there are, although people would call us of different faiths, our Roman Catholic and Methodist brothers are not of a different faith. They're simply of a different denomination. We all share the same faith. Whatever you might hear on the radio, we are all Christians. If there are different ways of belonging, as we know there are there different ways of believing? It seems to me that the answer to that has to be yes. And indeed, the otherness of God seems to demand that. And I know from my experience of training people for ministry and those who wanted to engage more deeply with their faith, that people believe in different ways and they experience God in different ways. And indeed our Gospel today tells us that. No one knows the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. God is not comprehensible. God is not controllable through wisdom and intelligence, and thank God for that. God is only known through self-revelation, and that is both inexhaustible and precarious. And what is revealed through Jesus only confirms the otherness of God. Those who thought they understood Jesus as the bringer of festivity had to think again when he brought his followers to mourning. His life, and above all his trial and his death, overwhelmed all belief that cannot tolerate difference. For Jesus was tried and crucified not because he would not conform to the rules. Jesus was tried and crucified because he would not conform to the rules by which the religious authorities expected God to behave. He was for them an outsider who played by other rules, someone who refused to give the religious authorities the satisfaction of conforming to their power games. They thought loyalty to their understanding of God was a religious duty. Their ultimate condemnation was that in the name of their God, they consigned God's only Son to destruction. Thinking they were protecting God's honour, they committed the ultimate treachery. Like those religious authorities of old and the children in the marketplace, we too find difference hard to cope with. Perhaps it reminds us of things in ourselves we would rather forget, reminds us of our own fragility, our own incomplete knowledge of God. Indeed, remind us of our own dependence upon a God who is unknowable. We would all prefer concrete beliefs. How much easier life is when we have that safety blanket of concreteness. But Jesus shows a God who challenges us to examine our cherished beliefs, beliefs that may have become idols rather than icons, challenges us to reckon afresh with a fierce, untamable tiger who is God. Today, Jesus reminds us that we cannot predict God's revelation. No one knows the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son chooses to reveal him, he says. And this always takes us by surprise, because God himself establishes his own way of knowing with each of us. Yes, it is frustrating when people won't play by our rules and when people won't join our community. But the God of otherness and the God of surprise gives us no right to insist on conformity and sameness. Perhaps those who will not join us, those who are decidedly other than us, witness to a particular source of otherness, which is God. And in their stubborn witness to difference and freedom, they serve to challenge the familiar beliefs we hold and the communities we inhabit. Beliefs and communities which we all too often use as a refuge from the uncomfortable and mysterious God of Calvary. Amen.